I recommend for anybody that needs the energy and the exuberance, the boldness to go out there and build something great, you have to have energy, and this is the best investment possible, is to have the energy in the tank so you can take off like a rocket and go do all the things that you want to do.
This is the Startup Junkies Podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies Podcast. My name is Daniel Koonce, and I'm joined here today by my co-host, Mr. Grant Boston. Grant, how are you doing today?
Really good. Really excited. This is my first podcast officially, so I'm really excited to play a role.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. This is also a special episode. It's one of our virtual podcasts. And we have a special guest from out of town down in Austin, Texas. We have Ari Rastegar. Ari, how are you doing today?
Going on, living the dream, brother.
Yeah, so Ari, you're the founder and the CEO of Rastegar Capital. We were just talking off air a little bit. You started the company about 2014, 2015. Tell us a little bit about the capital company.
So we're a real estate investment firm. So we've invested across 38 cities, 13 states, 7 different asset classes. Our investors are public pension funds, insurance companies. We have a huge book of high net worth investors as well. And we've kind of been asset class agnostic, and that's just a real jargony way of saying we invest in a lot of different things, from apartments to single family homes, industrial facilities, data centers, self-storage facilities, super tall office buildings, et cetera. And our focus has really been around land usage and zoning, or zoning and entitlements. And that basically means buying a massive piece of land, 300 acre, 400 acre, that was a farm, and then going to the city, talking to the neighbors and figuring out what it could be in a market that's growing or evolving or changing. And by doing that, creating value, and then and building where the neighborhood and the community is evolving versus building what could have by right been there. I have a background as an attorney, and that's very much there's science to it, but there's also art and working with the neighborhoods and the councils and groups. So that's allowed us to be to invest in a lot of different types of stuff versus like the narrow focus. You see a lot of real estate investment firms just do multifamily or just do office, et cetera.
Yeah, it seems like you guys cast a wide net in what you invest in. That's awesome. So you're talking about you have an experience as an attorney, and off air we're talking a little bit about you started investing in real estate while you were in law school.
Yeah.
What was that aha moment when you realized, hey, real estate investing, this is it, and maybe not practicing as a lawyer?
Well, it wasn't as much of an aha moment as it was maybe we can try this. I think maybe we can try to do something even more difficult than going to law school, maybe some masochism, or I don't entirely know, but real estate was really important to my grandpa. He was the king of Iran's, one of the king of Iran's physicians. My dad was an attorney, went to law school later on in life. So neither one of them really studied business per se, but as historians, I was an English literature major. So, studying like the wealthiest families for the past however many thousands of years, real estate was kind of the backbone of that. So in 2007, you could get loans much easier. Everything was going up. Everybody was looking a lot smarter than they were. I was in law school, and I used my scholarship money to buy a little single family lot. And I kept reading back and forth on my way to school this same name, Dugan Construction. I would just say for sale. And I felt like by the time I went to school on Monday, and by the time I was coming back from school on a Friday, it was saying sold. And so I figured, let's give this a try. And so I went and bought a lot in between some of the other ones that this construction company was already building, or at least their signs were in the front. I bought the lot for $3,500 and knocked on his door and said, well, I kind of own this. And he's like, why? And I was like, well, I want to learn how to do this. Maybe I can get rich. And he said, okay.
Here you are.
And I guess, I fucked up a lot of things along the way in between, but I definitely, I guess, looking backwards, it looked like I failed forward, at least, to say the least.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how you mentioned, you look at the rich people and they all kind of invest in real estate a little bit. A lot of our audience are like small business owners, entrepreneurs, or people who want to start their own business one day. If you're looking at someone who says, I want to put my foot in the door of real estate investing, in 2025 or 2026, I guess that's the year it is. What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Learn before you do anything. Right now, the difference between when I was starting versus now is, you have the ability to listen to a podcast as an example. You can go on YouTube, you can read certain books. Like, you can literally go on, if you want to be in real estate private equity, you could literally go on YouTube and listen to the top 10 CEOs in the business, like deliver a speech at Davos or give some keynote or something. Like, give so much access to information that it maybe sounds a little bit boring on the front end, but if you're young, exuberant, bold, and you have that dream or that unquenchable hunger that you have to have as an entrepreneur, because the dark nights of the soul are so real and so profound and so soul crushing that if you don't have that insatiable appetite, and those who know they have it, they know it, and those that don't are wondering what the fuck I'm talking about. But if you have it, take the time to harness that energy to go listen, because once you start using real dollars, real debt, God forbid other people's capital to start getting leverage returns, those mistakes become very, very expensive, and you're going to make them also. But if you can mitigate that risk on the front end with a lot of front-loaded education, you're going to put yourself in a much better situation.
Yeah. So do your homework, do your research.
Do your homework and overly do your homework.
Learn.
Yeah, go out. I mean, and look, like failure is how you learn to win. I wrote a whole book about it, as you know. And so failure to me is not a bad thing, but not all failing. Like, there's a way to fail successfully. Like, there's a successful fail, although it sounds like an oxymoron. There's a way, and being a professional investor, it's about how you manage the downside. It's how you look at what you could lose or what's the opportunity cost of. And at the beginning, when you are just starting, it's just your time at the moment, so spending that extra time to really understand that, and even go and find an operator if you live in a certain city that's really growing, that you really believe in. I'm born and raised in Austin, Texas, and I think buying this city up early made us look a lot smarter than we are. But it was home, and it was growing, and we saw things happening. We had personal relationships here. Real estate is a people business. Real estate is a relationship business in so many different ways. So if you have that and you're in a city, and as example, you believe in or you like spending that time to be around the people that are really doing it in a meaningful way. And I know that's maybe not the sexy answer people want to hear, but that is how you really get your foot in the door. And if you're lucky enough to have a mentor or have someone that'll hire you that you can work for 24/7 to learn from, even on their dollar, that really is going to make all the difference in the world, because there are so many nuances, there's so many particulars for how debt is procured and how you raise equity, the structure of the special purpose vehicles, of how you buy them, where you source your deals from, permitting, zoning, architecture. God, there's so many component parts that finding a place to start will make a big difference. The last thing in the world you want to do is just buy something and try to flip it or something like that. I did that at the beginning, got very, very lucky, but in hindsight, it was so fucking dumb. It's mind numbing. In a way, it would have been better if it didn't work, because I would have. I think I would have learned a little bit more, but then I went and practiced law, and I, blew up a huge entertainment company, which doesn't sound too fun either, but it was the best thing that I ever did.
Yeah. I know Grant has some questions for you. Grant, I'm going to let you ask him in 1 second, only because you just brought up failure. So I've got to ask you this real quick. I've seen all over your LinkedIn, all over your website, even the book, you emphasize failure being super important. You go as far as saying on your LinkedIn header, you say, I hope you fail, and I hope you fail a lot.
I do.
I want to ask you, what's a big failure in your career that might have been super helpful for you?
Well, the entertainment company, and I talk about it in the book because it was so unimaginable what happened. We did these huge parties around the Super Bowl and NBA All-Star weekend. I was the attorney for a group the year before when the NBA All-Star game was in Dallas. So I represented LeBron James and Drake, or the group that was putting on their after parties, as you see, the celebrity walkthrough parties of whatever. And so I got to kind of see how that worked as an attorney. And then the next year, the Super Bowl was in Dallas and NBA All-Star was going to be in LA. So one of the most decorated financiers in modern history, literally, is my wrestling coach's cousin. And so he financed me to start this company. He's like, oh, he was a big Cowboy fan. He's like, this is, the Dallas is going to be the Super Bowl. Well, you were the lawyer. Well, why don't you go out and try to sign the acts and do the parties, and we'll sell tables and all this kind of stuff. So we did. And we signed the Black Eyed Peas. We signed Sports Illustrated. We did the very first live streaming of an event on MySpace. I'm aging myself. And did some crazy, insane shit. We were selling tables for $50,000 a pop. So we signed all the stuff. We had the parties. We sold tables. I literally remember the feeling of looking at the accounts and saying, holy shit, I'm 27 years old. I'm a multimillionaire. I'm looking in the accounts, holy shit, I was delivering pizzas at Double Dave's, what felt like 15 minutes before that. And then the next day, the biggest ice storm in the history of Dallas, Texas, annihilated the parties. And all of the chargebacks started coming, and the account went negative 800,000. And so I was a millionaire for about, I've done the math a few times, about 7.5 hours. Maybe 8 hours. Most of it was asleep. But we still actually did the parties just with a third of the amount of people and all the whatever. And the parties were insane. But this unthinkable, unplannable thing happened, and it fundamentally changed my life. It taught me as an investor to plan for the unplannable, to actually think of scenarios. And so when we go in and buy an apartment complex or buy a big piece of land, we're actually about to build the tallest building ever built in uptown Dallas. And the uptown is the other side of downtown, the good part where Goldman Sachs is and the New York Stock Exchange. And now I spend so much time thinking about how we could lose money. That is the very, so the bulk of my time. And I found the more that I think about how I could lose money back then, I didn't give a fuck. I was let's throw a crazy party. I was David Guetta's opening for the Black Eyed Peas. This is insane. We were...
It's all going to go right. It's all going to go perfect.
Yeah. How could it not go? We have all these huge
how could it go wrong?
We have the best venue. How could it go wrong? And now everything I think of, these are the things that go wrong. And what I found in my experience of being involved in billions and billions of dollars of deals is when you figure out all the things that could go wrong, they usually don't, but it does increase the probability of what could go right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So I do want to ask now, going through that, horrific business move, what do you do now to mitigate risk in your day-to-day?
Yeah, it's a great question. One is, you surround yourself so the reason a lot of big investment companies have investment committees, and I didn't, I own 100% of my company too. I never raised top line capital. And if you build every single thing we own, which will probably take another $300 or $400 million of equity, it's billions and billions of dollars, call it $7 billion in assets. And I think about that because at the beginning as the founder and CEO and owning it all, you make the decisions. And you come to find that at one point that is not a good strategy. Having people around you, that have different backgrounds, CPAs, lawyers, analysts, MBAs, that can really go and stress test those deals and bring a different perspective, helps you kind of, not drink your own Kool-Aid. Because once you get into a deal, you kind of get pregnant because you spent money on diligence, you got under contract, and you start believing your Excel models, which you can toggle to say you're going to make 30 times your money. It's very easy to look at a spreadsheet and get intoxicated by it. But by having people around you that are educated and have different types of intelligence, which there's mathematics intelligence, emotional intelligence, metacognition intelligence, but in differing opinions that all want the same goal. We all want to make money for our investors. That's what this is about. But by doing that and having different perspectives, you end up coming to a place where you see the pitfalls that one person by design shouldn't see, because teams win championships, people don't, and you learn that quickly in that process of bringing different perspectives and have those discussions before you start spending money. So I'm going to go drop $300 million, on a project, and we put a few $100,000 into diligence. Yeah, it would suck to walk away, but it would suck a whole lot more to lose $300 million.
Yeah,
which we won't, by the way.
Proper frameworks in with right people. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Great people with different perspectives, different types. I think the point of that is surrounding yourself with people that have different just different perspectives on life, different background of education types, different types of intelligence, different, contractors. It's amazing how when you're building something, you look at all this stuff, your blueprints. But when I go talk to one of my buddies, like a boots on the ground, like electrician, he's like, no. That's a pretty picture, but you got to move this over here. Like you ask the plumber about something or the roofing guy, it's like, that's a great picture, but I don't know how the fuck we're going to build that. And so like having a cross section of people. So when I hold these larger meetings, I always have people boots on the ground from construction workers, always all the way up to the executives. So we're getting a perspective from every level of the organization, all different backgrounds of the organization. Does it mean, you're going to make money on every deal? Absolutely not. But it does, like I said, increase the probability that you're going to make less dumb decisions. And at this point in my career, that's really the main objective is try not to be dumb or as dumb.
Makes sense. Yeah.
The Startup Junkies podcast is brought to you in part by Arise. Arise helps Arkansas tech and tech-enabled startups grow with no-cost coaching, capital navigation, and expert connections so founders can scale faster. Learn more at arisearkansas.org. Now that's super cool to hear, like the communication you have from top to bottom with your team. You mentioned earlier you talk, when you're building out, you talk to the community members and kind of get their input as well. Yeah. And I saw community impact was one of your main tabs on your guys' website. Can you tell us a little bit about that side of the business?
Yeah, it sounds a little corny, but it's really what we live by, of putting unity back in community. And there's a lot of one of the most exciting parts of my day, and also putting family back in multifamily. But one of the most exciting parts of my career has been recently on a 318-acre site that used to be a farm. We went and met with the city and rezoned it to be a master plan community. What that means is we now have 60 acres of green space. We can build a huge, what we call a Texas town square. So commercial space in the middle that has maybe a restaurant, coffee shop, et cetera. 1,400 apartment units, 1,000 single family homes. And we donated 11 acres to build the new elementary school. And that moment of being able to donate that piece, and this year the school actually opening, was one of the most profound moments of my life. Like seeing, oh my God, like this is what impact really is. And clearly we created a bunch of value. It's a 7-8 year project to build that many houses, that many apartments. But when you start to see that you can design these communities, and then once you design the community and humans start to populate them, those communities then design you. And that is, it's just the gratification and the fulfillment is something that is just inexplicable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations, by the way. That's super cool to hear. Something we've been kind of telling people, we talk small business owners all the time. At least I do. I say, focus on your employees, focus on your clients, focus on your community, and profit will take care of itself. If you focus on those top three, the fourth thing will take care of itself. Is that something you would agree with?
Some of it. I think that you are your most important asset, though. I think that you left the only thing, that the most important thing out of that equation is you. Because if you don't have you can't go do any of the things you just said. Like you have to focus on your employees. You have to go focus on community, and then profit will take care of yourself. And I say that because, I spend such a profound amount of time on health and wellness, both mental, physical, and spiritual health. Because as an entrepreneur, not sleeping for 2-3 days at a time, like living that crazy founder mode, you destroy yourself. And if you don't have, and I've done so many heart scans and brain scans over the years, with working with either Dr. Joe Dispenza, who in his meditation retreats, or Tony Robbins and stuff that I've done on my own, a heart and a mind that is incoherent from anxiety, from stress, from lower base level emotions, doesn't make quality decisions. When you're in a place of distress, and it's hard to actually open your heart and be heart-centered truly. And so if you spend the time as an investment to go, whether through your meditation practice, spirituality, there's so many different forms, ways to get there. For me, transcendental meditation and Dr. Joe's meditation work, some emotional resilience training I've done with Tony Robbins have been my mode, but there's a lot of ways to get there. Find your own. And the more that I focus on investing in my own mental and physical health with what I eat, vitamins, hormone replacement, staying away from intoxicants, sugar, alcohol, whatever. When I felt better and my physical, mental health was in fact better from the scans I had, from checking my blood, not just how I felt, like feelings lie like a motherfucker, but blood work and brain scans and heart scans show you the real thing. I could look at my heart scan and say, that right there is anxiety. That right there is depression. And then as it migrated, I could look at my heart scan and say, that is gratitude. That is joy. That is empathy. That is love. And when I look at the business and how it grew, how it scaled on a J curve exponentially, the better I felt, the more I had to give, the more that I had the patience to speak with my team, my employees, the more that I could walk to a community member and sit with them and listen to their story with open ears and feel their love, feel their concerns and reciprocate it with something that wasn't, just snarky. And then from there, it created the most valuable commodity in the universe, which is trust. That when you have trust, you can move mountains. And then from there, so the only thing my one guy's opinion was I would put how you care for yourself in that hierarchy that you explained.
That is super cool to hear. That's awesome insight, especially coming from a personal standpoint there. I'm going to have to start telling people that a little bit.
Yeah. And I want to ask though, in the startup culture, how do you, what advice would you have for somebody who wants to prioritize their, physical and mental health while, trying to build a business from the ground up?
Yeah. I think there's some very, very simple, cost-effective things that you can do. And just going back to like this Pareto principle of 80-20 and, a lot of things that I've done and with this term biohacking, which is used very, very loosely now, has really become my hobby. But at the end of the day, if you can take a multivitamin, take a good multivitamin and go on Amazon, find something. I like a brand called Life Extensions. There's another one, Pure Encapsulations. I don't represent these brands or anything. I just, my kids take them too. And they don't like to swallow pills. So I open them up and put them in a thing like in lemonade and give it to them or something. But if you take a multivitamin, take a probiotic and a prebiotic. And a probiotic is for the natural flora and fauna of your intestines. And your gut has more neural synapses than your brain. It's also more matter. But that's why people say I have a gut feeling about things, this and that. So we have an epidemic of colon cancer in young people in this country, which is so preventable in so many ways. There are absolutely genetic propensities, and I don't want to undermine that by any stretch of the imagination. But if you have all your limbs, you have the luxury of having your mental faculties. If you take a probiotic, and a prebiotic is the food of the probiotic that propagates the good bacteria in your gut, so that your body functions well. That simple movement of those nutraceuticals, and then doing your best to eliminate sugar, from your diet, moving your body vigorously. These are just very, 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 very basic pillars. And then for your mental health, closing your eyes for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes, finding some sort of meditative practice, whether it's, there's so many different ways out there, but the moment of just keeping your eyes closed and sitting for a moment and allowing your brain to calm from beta into alpha, and if you're lucky into theta or delta, has such profound benefits. Again, as an investment, and everything I just told you would probably cost you, the vitamins are maybe $20 a month, and not eating junk and those things. You have no idea, or I had no idea how bad I felt until I started to feel good. I'm 43 years old right now. I've never felt better in my entire life in every single category. I like myself in the mirror. I like myself in the gym. I like the way that I show up for my kids and my staff. And 10 years ago was an abomination, even 5 years ago. And so I recommend for anybody that needs the energy and the exuberance, the boldness to go out there and build something great, you have to have energy, and this is the best investment possible, is to have the energy in the tank so you can take off like a rocket and go do all the things that you want to do. Because if you run out of energy, you're fucked. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Wait, well, that's great advice. I'll take that as a student as well. So
I'm learning too, bro. I like
learning.
French fries and pizza too. Like, it's not I'm not, speaking here with a level of perfection, but there are some elements of that make a massive, 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 massive difference.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Grant. I'll be researching some vitamins right after this.
Definitely try take some notes from that. Yeah.
So Ari, what do the next 5 years look like for you?
Well, the next 5 years are a few things. One is we're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so we are at a time of dramatic change, exponential change. Information technology grows exponentially, but also accelerates exponentially. And I say that to where there's a time to be to have a very bold long-term vision, and you should, and we do. But there's another time when if you're a student of history, and history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so meaning when we go through these big shifts, as we saw with the introduction of electricity into culture, the advent of social media, all these different moments in time when things are changing profoundly, things are going to be invented. And then those things are going to invent things, and those things are going to invent things. And what I mean by that is there's a time to have a very long-term vision that you want to be, very stern on, you should say. But you also have to be very flexible in your approach. You want to be like bamboo, or that's what I tell myself at least. You want to grow, you want to spend time growing underground, sprout up, but be flexible to move back and forth, because you have to know that your plans are going to change. Your strategy is going to change. It is going to evolve. If you ask Elon Musk even recently, he basically discontinued Tesla. And if you asked him before, he thought it maybe would be a possibility to start doing robotics, but he thought it'd be 10 years later in the future. Now they're discontinuing Teslas and moving straight into the Optimus. I give that as an example to say right now, because things are changing so much, I focus on a 12-week year. It's an incredible book. Everybody should read it who's in business. 12-week year basically says, take everything you're looking to do, set your goals, set your budgets, set your timeline, set your objectives around a 12-week period so that you can stay wildly focused on the thing that's in front of you, achieve those milestones. And I kind of think of it like golf a little bit. I'm not a golfer, but if you go and you look down the fairway 400 or 500 yards, like, you know where you're going, but all of your attention has to go on the ball right in front of you. Your head has to be down. You have to hit the ball right in front of you. So you glance up at where you're going 5 years, 10 years down the road, and put every drop of energy right in front of you. And by continuing to put all of that energy in the present moment, you're going to show up with your best self. And then the things are going to evolve and you're going to deal with them. Yes, looking forward to where you're going. Yes, we're going to build, at least 10 gigawatts of data centers across the world over the next 5 years, which is probably $200 billion in value. We're going to build hundreds of thousands of apartments and houses, and the technology interfaces that go into them, and the construction companies, and the banking systems that enable them. We're going to do all that, absolutely. But right now, we're laser focused on building the things that are right in front of us, because looking too far down the road becomes an exercise in futility, because it's inevitably going to change. So knowing that those flexibilities are going to need to be there as a matter of course, really helps save a bunch of headache and a bunch of useless time spent trying to plan for something that it's inevitably going to change.
Yeah, that's such an awesome mindset to have. Like the golf visualization is really, really cool. It's something I've been kind of focusing on in my life recently. So great advice. I mean, for both Grant, I, and our listeners. But the way we like to wrap up our show is, if you can go back in time and give younger Ari a piece of advice, what would you tell him? It could be yesterday Ari, it could be Ari from 2010, whenever.
I think about this, pretty often. Like, I think the only thing that I would really tell him is, in those really, really dark times, whether in childhood or whether in starting the business, or, delivering pizzas and, having $4 to my name, but having visions of grandeur, I would really just say, just keep going. Like, just no matter what, just keep going. Because if I told him more than that, it would have taken away the gift of overcoming obstacles and learning that obstacles are the way. And as much as I would love to have told him, as a father of 3 now, there's so many things I deliberately don't tell my children, because if they don't fall down and they don't scrape their knees, they're not going to get the joy of learning how to get back up.
Yeah, it's a blessing to overcome those obstacles, isn't it?
It's a blessing if you take the time to pause. Like I've had the question many times, or what would you tell someone when they get knocked down? And my answer has always been, don't get up. Lay down for a little bit. Like, stay down there for a bit and think about what the fuck just happened. Like, how did you get down there? Realize that you don't want to be there for very long because it's not cozy. Think about all the different issues that happen. And then when you go to stand back up with a plan, stand back up with introspection, stand back up, looking back through that failure, find the golden nugget, put it in your pocket, stand back up with resolute feet, in that place, and then march into the next step. Because if you get back up too quickly, in my experience, it's another just easy way to get knocked back down again in an unproductive way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an awesome perspective, and that's some great advice. Ari, I can say with confidence, you have been one of my favorite guests we've ever had on this show.
Thank you, bro.
I'm going to go back and rewatch this just to make sure I got every single piece of advice right. So we appreciate you coming on the show. If any of our audience, our listeners, they want to learn more about you or about Rastegar Capital, where can they go?
I appreciate that. And I think it's a lot of the places you said earlier. Like, the team is very active on LinkedIn, very active on Instagram and YouTube. You can go to our website, rastegarcapital.com. You can Google my name, or Google the name of the company. The team works very, very hard to put stuff out that's meaningful, that's helpful. You can buy my book, which is called The Gift of Failure, on Amazon, or you can listen to it on Spotify or Audible. I did the audio version myself, which was a nightmare, by the way. And especially for a kid that had a speech impediment growing up, like, it took me 7 years to learn how to talk. It was had a little bit of PTSD doing it, but nonetheless, it's done. And I really wrote it for, I promised myself when I was at Johnny Rockets flipping burgers, that if I ever was lucky enough to make it to the other side, that I would write a book, that would kind of told the truth of what it took, not just, try to talk about myself. So I hope if you read it, I hope you fail. I hope you fail a lot. And I hope you learn from my failures, because I've learned that an idiot learns from their failures. A wise person will learn from the failures of others.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. We'll make sure to link everything in the show notes. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Ari. Nice to see you, bro.
Appreciate
you got it.
Yeah. And we want to remind our viewers to check out Ari's website, check them out on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and to follow the Startup Junkies podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. Subscribe and review, because it matters to us and we want to hear from you. If you're interested in learning how to work with us, check out the information below. See you next week.